Brad Stevens doubting his own team. We'll hear from him in a second. But first, check this out. Magic Sixers Jonathan Isaac destroys the rim with a one-handed jam.
Are the Magic going to make the playoffs? Is that going to happen this year?
Man, looking at the standings, I'm shocked that the Magic are still right there.
They've won 5 in a row. Now, sentimentally, I'd like the Heat and Dwayne Wade to get that 8th spot, but the Magic having a hell of a run at the end of the year.
Thunder Grizzlies, did you see that? It was Steven Adams starting with the break. Long steal, long pass to Dennis Schroeder, up to Paul George.
One of the only highlights from OKC in this game.
There's something going on with OKC, man. They hit a wall.
Maybe they just want the Warriors in the first round.
Okay.
They're just tanking into that 8th spot.
Okay.
Hoping to get Golden State in round
like
one.
it.
That's the only justification for how they've looked the last
That's
few days.
nice and spicy.
There
We're
you go.
tanking so we can play.
Little NIT, Colorado versus Norfolk State. Shane Gatling finds Tyler Bay off the pick and roll for the alley-oop.
Nice little pick and roll. Nice catch. NIT, man. It's one of my favorite tournaments. My brother was my brother was the MVP of the NIT.
Oh,
he knocked down a buzzer beater against Purdue. Absolutely. Butch Carter, look it up. NIT. Bang! From the free throw line.
Okay.
McDonald's All-American Game Dunk Contest. Florida recruit, that's Scotty Lewis, jumping over not 1, not 2, but 3 people while doing a windmill.
Very nice. He got a little prop, though. He got a little help on the way up.
A little push-off. That's okay. That's all right. You're going to do a windmill over 3 human beings. You can have a little prop. I got no problem with that. I like that court, though.
Heads were down.
Yeah, the court was really nice.
I like that court.
There was a female dunker.
Shorter people or get with their heads up, or but tall people with their heads down.
You right.
He was getting other players, Jenna. Basketball players are tall.
I would have got some smaller ones.
Right, and then getting, okay. Moving on to the Celtics now. Rough weekend. 2 games, 2 losses. Too much losing for a team once projected to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. They are facing the likely possibility they start the playoffs on the road as the 5 seed. Keep in mind, Celtics were 1-7 on the road last postseason. Here's Brad Stevens after the loss on Sunday.
I think we're to the point now where, rightfully so, we'll be doubted. Rightfully so, we've earned that. And so it's time to buckle up and respond to this tough run. I think ultimately, we'll see how the rest of this story plays itself out.
So, Nick, I feel like we have been discussing this all season long, and we keep saying, well, they'll eventually get their footing. They'll eventually figure this out. There's enough talent on this team. They'll put it all together. But are we running out of time? Do you expect them to rebound from this tough stretch before the playoffs start?
No, and I take issue with one thing you said before the Brad Stevens sound, which is you said many people expected them in the Eastern Conference Finals. No, no, no. The Boston Celtics were the preeminent favorite to make the NBA Finals. I was considered a critic because I thought they might not make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. That was considered, oh, you must just be hating for no reason. They had the second highest Vegas over-under as far as projected wins. They won 53 games 2 years ago with Isaiah Thomas as their best player. They won 55 games last year, even though Kyrie missed the last month of the season. This was a team that had Gordon Hayward coming back, a healthy Kyrie, Tatum in year 2, Brown in year 3. They didn't lose anyone of substance in free agency. This team was supposed to contend with Golden State. They were supposed to be having the year Milwaukee's having. They're not even having the year the Clippers are having. That's who they are right now, and we've got 8 games left. So no, they're not going to change. No, they're not going to be any different. And this is a squandered season for Boston. If this season went one way, you know how it would have ended? With Kyrie keeping his promise, signing a contract extension, a trip to the finals, probably a loss to Golden State, and a trade for Anthony Davis this summer.
Yeah, I don't know if all those things are true, but the thing about the expectations, that's the reason why right now they have so many people doubting, because of expectations. But were those expectations realistic? Because we just thought with Brad Stevens, they have a huge coaching advantage. Got a new coach in Toronto, new coach in Milwaukee, and we felt like Boston with the 2 additional All-Stars, they were more talented. So they got a coaching advantage, they got talent. That's why people said, oh, they would be there. But once you start the season, they don't have no coaching advantage over Nurse. They don't have no coaching advantage over Coach Bud in Milwaukee. Like Brad Stevens had, you talking about the players, Brad Stevens hadn't had a good year. He hadn't shown elite coaching with the most talented roster he's ever had in professional basketball or in college basketball. So you can spread the blame around. But once the season started, no, they weren't the favorite. Milwaukee has been substantially better, and people should doubt. It's hard to think because last year, people forget, they struggled going into the playoffs, but we had two excuses. They're young and they're injured. They caught fire in the playoffs, the younger players, and the overall chemistry. The reason why now is Toronto. We didn't know what they would do at Kawhi. They have tremendous chemistry. They're well coached, and they're talented. Their bench is really strong. Milwaukee, they've transformed. It's how they're going to play basketball. Man, they shoot the three. They dominate the paint. They play great defense. They're almost unbeatable at home. So, no, they're not afraid. I don't expect the Celtics to be able to beat these teams that consistently have put it together. And the questions they had coming into the season, Toronto, Milwaukee, and even Philadelphia, most of those questions have been answered from a positive standpoint compared to the Celtics.
But here's the other reason why for Boston, this even with Toronto and Boston, or Toronto and Milwaukee exceeding expectations, it'd be one thing if it's like, man, Milwaukee's going to win 60 games, Toronto's going to win 57. So Boston's going to win 55 games again, have a really good year. There were just two teams that hit on everything. Toronto made a midseason trade that helped them. Milwaukee, they have the #1 defense in basketball, the #1 overall net rating in basketball, top 3 offense. Like, okay, so those are two great teams. Boston's really, really good, just not there. That's not where they are. Right now, they have a worse record than every team that's going to make the playoffs in the West. There are 12 teams in the NBA with the same or better record than Boston. That's a mediocre season, and it's a bad season given where the expectations
So
are.
if you look at this team, would you point more towards team chemistry or team talent as the reason why this season has gone awry?
Well, the reason why we haven't seen the team talent is because they don't have team chemistry. They are not willing to sacrifice each other's game because that's what you have to do in team sports. You can't have career years for your top guys. Like, guys have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice playing defense. You have to be able to rebound, but you have to be totally consumed with what the team is doing compared to, man, am I going to stay here? Man, I need to make sure I get me a max deal on this other contract. Man, I should be a starter, Terry Rozier. All these things, they get in the way, and they pollute the water from a team being able to operate in sync. So the lack of chemistry has been the biggest issue this year. The second biggest issue, Gordon Hayward. Those minutes that he has gotten, it's affected the other players because he has not been consistently better than them, and they've given him minutes out of respect, out of previous relationship with Branson, like for some reason, but that's one of the huge problems that they have there.
Well, and the other element for Boston that is so concerning and a reason why any faith or optimism is just blind faith or blind optimism is they had a chance at a reset when everybody does at the All-Star break. All right, guys, the first 2/3 of the season didn't go the way we had hoped, but we still can be the 3rd seed in the East. If Toronto falters, we maybe could get up to #2. We know what our rotation is. Gordon's as healthy as he's been since he first got here. And since the All-Star break, they're 6-10. They're 1-8 against playoff teams since the All-Star break.
They're behind the Pacers. The Pacers haven't had Oladipo.
They have 100%. Like, we just gave Boston the 4 seed at least when Oladipo went down. And the reason that I said the story is a squandered opportunity is maybe they would or wouldn't have been able to trade for Anthony Davis. But when Kyrie said, I'm going to stay in Boston in October, I do believe, and I believed at the time, that was his intention. Now, I thought things could change what his intention was. But the way to keep him there was to have a successful season. The way to keep him there was to reach expectations. Have Kyrie be the leader of a really good team. Instead, it's gone the other way. And so now you would almost look at it and say, wait, what is the reason for Kyrie to stay? It's not as if you can make the argument, well, you're leaving a championship team. You really want to leave there to go to the Knicks when the Boston's not a championship team, and Milwaukee's not going anywhere. We don't know what's going to happen with Toronto and Kawhi. Philly, I would imagine, is only going to get better depending on if they can keep their free agents. Like, Boston went into this year as the favorite out east. They went into last year as the 2nd favorite behind Cleveland. They will not go into next year as the 1st or 2nd out east. That's jarring for a team that's been building towards this for a half-decade.
This is the irony to it was, I mean, how good is a team if Kyrie's your best player?
That's
because He's the best player now, just like he was in Cleveland before LeBron came back. They didn't win anything. Now, Kyrie, though, the reason why you can't put too much into that is because he's having a great year. He's having career-type years, but the other guys around him are not. I always thought it was on the board based on what people were saying that he was not going to stay in Boston and that he was going to try to be in New York City. That's always been part of one of his goals. He didn't request to go to the Celtics, so that's kind of the irony to it. Kyrie is playing good basketball, but they're not. It doesn't translate into wins.
It's the most bizarre part of the season is that they are 10-2 when he does not play, 33-29 when he does, and much like those early years in Cleveland, his individual numbers are outstanding, and this is the best statistical year of his career, and it's not translating to wins.
All right, the question now, can Danny Ainge keep Kyrie Irving? Can the Raptors keep Kawhi Leonard? That question next on First Things First.